Whether you've been gardening for decades or just started digging in the dirt last spring, mistakes in the garden are inevitable. That's how we learn. But what if you could skip years of gardening heartache and jump straight to success? Your grandparents knew these secrets through years of trial and error, but many of these lessons have been forgotten. Today, we're sharing 20 common gardening mistakes that you're probably making. Too large a garden space? One of the biggest mistakes new gardeners make is starting with a space that's far too ambitious. Your grandparents' generation often had large gardens because they were feeding entire families year-round, but they also had the knowledge, tools, and often helping hands to manage that space properly. When starting out, many people clear massive plots, only to watch weeds reclaim half of it by midsummer because they can't keep up with maintenance. A small garden, well tended, will always produce more than a large garden neglected. Start with a modest 4 by 8 foot raised bed or a few containers on your patio. Focus on filling this smaller space with quality soil and amendments rather than spreading resources too thin. It's amazing how much food can grow in a compact, well-maintained space. As confidence and skills grow, the garden can expand, one bed at a time. Ignoring sunlight requirements. Plant it and it will grow might work in fairy tales, but in real gardens, sunlight is non-negotiable. Many gardeners place their beds in spots that look aesthetically pleasing without considering the most crucial factor: sunlight. Your grandparents understood the sun's patterns intimately. Before electricity, their days revolved around natural light. They knew that most vegetables need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight to thrive. Fruiting crops like tomatoes and peppers need even more, at least 8 to 10 hours for maximum yields. When gardens are placed in spots that only get 3 to 4 hours of sun, plants become spindly with disappointing harvests. Before building a single bed, spend a day tracking the sun's movement across the yard. For those in the northern hemisphere, south-facing areas typically receive the most consistent light. Remember that sun patterns change with the seasons. Overwatering plants. Just a little more water won't hurt might be one of the most dangerous thoughts in gardening. Overwatering kills more plants than underwatering, yet it's a mistake nearly everyone makes, especially with container plants and seedlings. In the days before automated irrigation, your grandparents watered deliberately and sparingly. They knew that constantly soggy soil suffocates roots by depriving them of oxygen. This leads to root rot, fungal diseases, and eventually plant death. Signs of overwatering often mimic underwatering: wilting leaves and stunted growth, causing confused gardeners to water even more. The solution is simple, but requires patience. Check before watering. Push a finger an inch into the soil. If it feels moist, wait another day. For container plants, lift the pot. A lightweight container needs water, while a heavy one doesn't. Different plants have different water needs. Succulents prefer drying out between waterings, while leafy greens need more consistent moisture. Underwatering plants. While overwatering is common, underwatering can be just as detrimental, especially during critical growth stages. The tricky part? Sometimes it's not obvious plants are thirsty until damage has already occurred. Your grandparents relied on careful observation rather than rigid schedules. They knew that surface soil can appear damp from morning dew or light rain while being bone dry several inches down where the roots actually grow. This deceptive appearance leads many gardeners to skip watering when plants are actually desperate for moisture. To avoid this mistake, dig down 4 to 6 inches to check soil moisture where it matters most. Established plants generally need about an inch of water weekly, either from rainfall or irrigation. During hot spells or when plants are setting fruit, they may need twice that amount. Consider using the water-weight water method for dry or peat-heavy soils that initially repel water. Hesitating. To prune. Many gardeners are reluctant to cut back their precious plants, fearing they'll cause harm. This hesitation, while understandable, can actually reduce yields and create conditions for disease. Your grandparents were more pragmatic about pruning. They understood that strategic cutting often stimulates more abundant growth and higher yields. Tomatoes, for example, benefit from removing suckers, the shoots that form in the crotch between branches, directing energy to fruit production rather than excessive foliage. Herbs like basil and mint produce more when regularly harvested, while fruit trees need annual pruning to maintain shape and productivity. Learn basic pruning techniques for the plants in your garden. Remove dead, damaged, or diseased growth promptly. These can harbor pests and pathogens that may spread. For flowering plants, deadheading, removing spent blooms often encourages more flowers. Use clean, sharp tools to make clean cuts that heal quickly. Not using mulch. Bare soil in a garden is like going outside in winter without a coat, exposed and vulnerable. Yet many gardeners leave their soil uncovered, missing out on one of the simplest ways to improve garden health and reduce maintenance. Your grandparents rarely left soil exposed. They used straw, grass clippings, shredded leaves, or even newspaper to protect their garden soil. This wasn't just tradition, it was practical knowledge gained through experience. Mulch acts as a protective blanket, moderating soil temperature, retaining moisture, suppressing weeds, and slowly adding organic matter as it breaks down. Apply a 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch around plants, keeping it an inch or two away from stems to prevent rot. In hot climates, mulch can reduce watering needs by up to 50%, while in cold regions, it protects roots from temperature fluctuations. Watering at the wrong time. When you water can be just as important as how much you water. Many gardeners grab the hose whenever they happen to notice dry soil, often during the hottest part of the day when they're out enjoying their garden. Your grandparents, who often carried every drop of water to their gardens by hand, were strategic about watering times. They knew that early morning, just as the sun rises, is ideal. This gives plants a reservoir of moisture to face the day's heat while allowing foliage to dry quickly, reducing disease risk. Late afternoon is the second best option, giving plants time to dry before evening. Avoid midday watering when the sun is strongest, as much of that precious water will evaporate before reaching the roots. Similarly, evening watering can be problematic, especially in humid climates, as it leaves foliage wet overnight, a perfect environment for fungal diseases to develop. Planting too close together. The temptation to maximize every inch of garden space often leads to overcrowding, a mistake that paradoxically reduces overall harvest. Those seed packets recommending 18 inches between tomato plants aren't being overly cautious. They're accounting for the plant's mature size and needs. Your grandparents, who relied on their gardens for sustenance, understood the importance of proper spacing. They knew that plants crowded too closely together compete for light, water, and nutrients, resulting in smaller harvests and increased disease problems due to poor air circulation. Follow spacing guidelines on seed packets and plant tags, remembering that they refer to the final spacing, not where seeds are initially placed. For direct-sown crops like carrots or lettuce, you'll need to thin seedlings to achieve proper spacing, a task many gardeners find difficult but necessary. If determined to maximize space, consider vertical gardening for vining crops or choose compact varieties bred for small spaces. Planting too deep. Just a little deeper is a thought that has killed countless seeds and seedlings. Planting depth might seem like a minor detail, but it can make the difference between vibrant growth and complete failure, especially for small seeds. Your grandparents had a simple rule of thumb passed down through generations. Plant a seed no deeper than twice its diameter. This means tiny seeds like lettuce or carrots barely need a dusting of soil, while larger seeds like beans can go deeper. They understood that seeds contain just enough energy to push through the proper amount of soil. Bury them too deep and they'll exhaust their reserves before reaching sunlight. For transplants, the opposite problem often occurs, with tomatoes being the notable exception. Most seedlings should be planted at the same depth they were growing in their containers. Planting too deeply can cause the stem to rot. Tomatoes are special. They can grow roots from their stems, so planting them deeper actually creates a stronger root system. Watering plant leaves. That beautiful spray of water arcing over the garden might look picturesque, but it's actually setting plants up for trouble. Overhead watering, spraying water directly onto plant foliage, is one of the most common mistakes gardeners make. Before modern irrigation, your grandparents often used watering cans with long spouts specifically designed to deliver water directly to the soil at the base of plants. They understood that wet foliage creates the perfect environment for fungal diseases like powdery mildew, early blight, and black spot to develop. Additionally, water droplets on leaves can act like tiny magnifying glasses in strong sunlight, potentially burning delicate foliage. Instead, use a watering wand with a gentle shower head to direct water at the soil level, or better yet, install soaker hoses or drip irrigation. These systems deliver water slowly and directly to the root zone, where plants can actually use it, killing beneficial insects. That spray. Everything approach to pest control might be doing more harm than good. Many gardeners reach for pesticides at the first sign of insects, not realizing they're often killing their garden's best defenders along with the pests. Your grandparents practiced a more balanced approach to garden ecology. Before synthetic pesticides became widely available, they relied on natural predators to keep pest populations in check. Ladybugs, lacewings, praying mantises, spiders, and parasitic wasps are nature's pest control, capable of consuming vast quantities of aphids, caterpillars, and other garden pests. Learn to identify beneficial insects and the valuable role they play in your garden. When pest problems arise, start with the least invasive solutions: a strong spray of water for aphids, hand picking for larger pests, or physical barriers like row covers. If pesticides must be used, choose targeted organic options and apply them selectively when beneficial insects are less active. Over-fertilizing. If a little is good, more must be better is a dangerous philosophy when it comes to fertilizing. Excess fertilizer doesn't create superplants. It creates weak, vulnerable plants and damages the environment. Your grandparents rarely had access to concentrated synthetic fertilizers. Instead, they built soil fertility gradually through compost, manure, and cover crops. They understood that plants need balanced nutrition, not force-feeding. Over-fertilizing, especially with nitrogen, creates lush, weak growth that attracts pests and diseases. It can also burn plants through salt buildup and contaminate waterways through runoff. Start with a soil test to understand what your garden actually needs, rather than guessing. For established gardens, compost is often the only amendment necessary. If using commercial fertilizers, follow package directions precisely. More is not better. Consider organic options like fish emulsion or well-aged manure, which release nutrients slowly and support soil life. Skipping the hardening-off process. Those tender seedlings nurtured indoors need a gradual introduction to the harsh outdoor world. Many gardeners, eager to get plants in the ground, skip this critical transition period, resulting in stunted growth or even plant death. Your grandparents, who often started seeds in cold frames or hotbeds, understood the importance of this adjustment period. Indoor-grown seedlings have never experienced direct sunlight, wind, temperature fluctuations, or rain. Suddenly exposing them to these elements is like throwing a child into the deep end of a pool before swimming lessons. The hardening-off process is simple, but requires patience. About a week before transplanting, start placing seedlings outdoors in a sheltered location for just an hour or two. Gradually increase their outdoor time each day, slowly introducing them to more direct sunlight. After 7 to 10 days of this gradual exposure, they'll be ready for transplanting. This process triggers physiological changes that strengthen cell walls and prepare plants for outdoor conditions. Ignoring pest problems. It's just a few holes in the leaves can quickly escalate to, "What happened to my entire garden?" Turning a blind eye to early signs of pest damage is a common mistake that can lead to devastating consequences. Your grandparents, who couldn't afford to lose their harvests, practiced vigilant garden observation. They knew that pest populations can explode exponentially. A few cabbage worms today become dozens by next week. They also recognized that stressed or unhealthy plants attract more pests, creating a downward spiral if problems aren't addressed promptly. Make daily garden observation a habit. Look under leaves, check stem joints, and monitor new growth for signs of trouble. Early intervention is key. Hand-pick larger pests, use insecticidal soap for soft-bodied insects, or introduce beneficial predators. Remember that some damage is acceptable. A few holes in kale leaves won't affect your harvest. Focus on identifying the specific pest before taking action, as misidentification can lead to ineffective treatments. Allowing weeds to grow. "I'll get to those weeds next weekend" is a thought that has preceded many garden disasters. Procrastinating on weeding is one of the most common and consequential gardening mistakes. Your grandparents tackled weeds religiously, often spending early morning hours with a hoe before the day's other work began. They understood that weeds are not just unsightly, they're aggressive competitors that steal water, nutrients, and sunlight from garden plants. Some even release chemicals that inhibit crop growth. Additionally, weeds can harbor pests and diseases that may spread to your vegetables. The key to effective weed management is consistency. Small seedling weeds can be eliminated in seconds, while established weeds with deep roots might take minutes per plant and keep returning. Make a habit of walking the garden daily with a hoe or hand tool, addressing weeds while they're small. Mulching dramatically reduces weed pressure by blocking light that weed seeds need to germinate. Keep picking. "I'll harvest everything on the weekend" is a mindset that can significantly reduce your garden's productivity. Many gardeners don't realize that regular harvesting is essential for continued production, especially with crops like beans, zucchini, and cucumbers. Your grandparents knew that vegetables like beans and zucchini need consistent picking to keep producing. When beans are left too long on the plant, it signals that the plant has successfully reproduced, triggering it to slow or stop flowering. The same principle applies to many fruiting vegetables. By harvesting regularly, even daily during peak season, you're telling the plant to keep producing more flowers and fruit. For the best results, check productive plants every 2 to 3 days during the growing season. Pick zucchini when they're small and tender, 6 to 8 inches, beans while they're still slim and crisp, and cucumbers before they become overgrown and bitter. This not only ensures the best flavor and texture, but also maximizes your total harvest. Removing the mother soil during repotting. "I need to get all the old soil off" is a thought that has stressed or killed many plants during repotting. Aggressively removing all soil from roots when transplanting or repotting is a common but potentially harmful practice. Your grandparents, who often had to make do with limited resources, took a gentler approach to transplanting. They understood that a plant's root system develops intricate relationships with beneficial soil microorganisms. The soil immediately surrounding the roots, often called the rhizosphere, contains fungi and bacteria that help plants access nutrients and water. Stripping this away forces the plant to rebuild these relationships from scratch. When repotting or transplanting, disturb the root ball as little as possible unless the plant is severely root-bound or the soil is contaminated. Gently tease out circling roots at the bottom and sides, but leave the core root ball intact. This preserves beneficial microorganisms and reduces transplant shock. Placing repotted plants in direct sunlight. "My plant needs lots of sun, so I'll put it right in the brightest spot after repotting." This seemingly logical thinking has led to the demise of countless newly repotted plants, leaving gardeners confused about what went wrong. Your grandparents understood that plants, like people, need recovery time after a major change. When a plant is repotted, its root system is inevitably disturbed, reducing its ability to take up water efficiently. Placing it immediately in direct sunlight increases water loss through the leaves at precisely the time when the plant is least able to replace that moisture. After repotting, keep plants in indirect light or shade for at least a week before gradually reintroducing them to their preferred light conditions. This recovery period allows the root system to establish in the new soil and resume normal water uptake. During this time, monitor moisture levels carefully, as the water requirements may differ in the new pot or soil mix. This simple act of patience, giving plants time to adjust before exposing them to stress, is a traditional wisdom that modern gardeners would do well to remember. Planting at the wrong time. It's warm today, time to plant tomatoes, has led to many emergency blanket coverings when temperatures plummet a week later. Timing is everything in gardening, and planting too early or too late can doom crops before they have a chance to thrive. Your grandparents relied on generations of local knowledge and natural indicators rather than calendar dates. They watched for signs like when certain wild plants bloomed or particular birds returned to know when conditions were right for planting. They understood that soil temperature, not just air temperature, determines whether seeds will germinate and seedlings will grow. Learn your local last and first frost dates, but treat them as guidelines rather than guarantees. Invest in a soil thermometer to check actual growing conditions. Cool season crops germinate in soil as cool as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, while warm season plants need soil at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Consider using season extension techniques like cold frames or row covers to safely get an early start. Relying on unscientific gardening information. I read it on the internet, so it must work, has led many gardeners down rabbit holes of ineffective or even harmful practices. In our information-saturated world, distinguishing between evidence-based gardening advice and myths can be challenging. Your grandparents relied on knowledge passed down through generations, refined by observation and experience. While they might not have understood the science behind why certain practices worked, their methods were tested over time. Today, we have the advantage of both traditional wisdom and scientific research, yet many gardeners fall prey to quick fixes and miracle solutions that sound too good to be true. Approach gardening information critically, especially dramatic claims about miracle products or techniques. Look for recommendations backed by agricultural extension services, university research, or reputable gardening organizations. Be particularly skeptical of one-size-fits-all solutions, as gardening is inherently local. What works in one climate or soil type may fail in another. Gardening mistakes happen to everyone. They're how we learn and grow. Which of these mistakes have you made in your garden? Share your stories in the comments below. If this video helped you avoid some gardening heartache, please hit that subscribe button for more practical gardening wisdom every week.